the pizza that cost $700 million. In 2010, a man did something that seemed completely normal. He bought two pizzas, nothing special, but he paid for them with 10,000 Bitcoin. At the time, those Bitcoin were worth around $40. So basically, he paid about $40 for two pizzas. Sounds like a pretty normal purchase, right? There's just one problem. Those same 10,000 Bitcoin would eventually be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And suddenly, those two pizzas became one of the most expensive purchases in history. But to understand what happened, we have to go back to 2010. Bitcoin was almost completely unknown. There were no massive companies talking about it, no millions of people buying it, and almost nobody believed it would ever become extremely valuable. The man behind the purchase was Laszlo Hanyecz, a programmer who was experimenting with Bitcoin. But he had a problem. What was the point of having a digital currency if you couldn't actually buy anything with it? So he posted an offer on a Bitcoin forum. He would pay 10,000 Bitcoin for two pizzas. Eventually, someone accepted. The pizzas arrived, and Laszlo got exactly what he wanted. Bitcoin had officially been used to buy something in the real world. At the time, the transaction seemed completely insignificant. But Bitcoin kept growing. First, it was worth cents, then dollars, then hundreds, and eventually thousands of dollars per Bitcoin. Those 10,000 Bitcoin that once bought two pizzas eventually became worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And here's where the story gets interesting. Laszlo wasn't scammed. His Bitcoin weren't stolen. He didn't lose his password. He simply spent them. So, was it the worst financial decision ever? Probably not. Because we have to remember something. In 2010, nobody knew what Bitcoin would become. To Laszlo, those 10,000 Bitcoin weren't a fortune. They were an experimental digital currency he could use to buy pizza. And that purchase actually helped prove something important. Bitcoin could be used as real money. In fact, Laszlo continued using Bitcoin to buy pizza afterward, and he doesn't seem particularly ashamed of it. But there's a bigger lesson here. When we look at decisions from the past using information we have today, everything seems obvious. It's easy to say, how could he spend 10,000 Bitcoin? But in 2010, the question was completely different. Why would anyone want Bitcoin? And maybe that's the most interesting part of the entire story, because we all have our own version of those 10,000 Bitcoin, an investment, an opportunity, a skill, or even time. Something that seems insignificant today could someday be incredibly valuable. The problem is, we don't know which one. And that's what makes those two pizzas more than just a Bitcoin story. They're a reminder that the future is impossible to price. And yes, they might just be the most expensive pizzas ever bought.